outwards to try and look at the CCTV, look at any travel links, perhaps even the use of a car if he had one. And the net will go even further than that. It will go right out towards the borders of the UK. And as was mentioned by your reporter there's always that possibility, because of the amount of hours that he has on the police, that, the efforts perhaps even to leave the country. But, be working to see if that has happened, but also to prevent it from happening as much as they can. So there'll be lots of work around trying to find him, look at the intelligence behind him, anything they know about his family, friends, associates, anything where he may well be now, and that will be their priority.
And just talking to Martin Underhill a short while ago, he was pointing out, the number of armed police who will need to be involved here, and the longer that this goes on, shifts change. How are they going to be managing to staff all of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, Hertfordshire don't have as many armed police as the Met, but the Met, they border each other. They'll be helping, and then let's not think that everyone just drops what they're doing and disappears. This is a particularly serious case that will involve a number of officers, and those officers will won't even think twice about staying on to try and make sure that in these critical hours that they have enough staff and resources to try and find him when necessary. So the shifts coming on, there'll be shifts being brought in early. There'll be more shifts coming on off their rest days. And this is what the police do. They want to try and solve this as much as anybody else. So I think that there'll be decisions being made to make sure that there is enough resources, especially if he is sighted.
We've talked about the shock that's been felt in the local community here. 3 women losing their lives in one home, women who were all known to each other. It would also have been a pretty brutal scene for those first officers who walked in the door to witness as well.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, these are things that police officers see day in, day out, and it's difficult to cope with that, and they'll get the necessary help they need as well. But most of the time, they focus on what the job is in hand, and that is that that scene will be preserved. It will be now being looked at through forensic glasses, really, to make sure that they can prove that it was him that committed these offences. And releasing his details to the press is another way that you would suggest perhaps the SIO is very convinced that that this man is responsible. But the officers, will be switching on to what they need to do. That won't just be the officers that unfortunately had to witness what happened inside the house, but it'll be everybody in that force area, the local force areas that are next to it. And indeed, with the amount of traction this case is generating in the press, it will be police officers around the country looking and making sure that he isn't in their area, and if he is, that they can get him as quickly as possible.
And in terms of the decision to release the photograph and the name quite early on into this investigation, they must have had a certain confidence before they released that.
Yeah, of course. And the senior investigating officer is ideal as well. You look at those decisions that could be very impactful. But when you get to the name of a suspect and being confident that it is him, that next stage is how confident are you that without releasing it to the press that you can find him yourself. And there clearly is that element here where they need help. They're asking for help. They're asking for sightings, and not just witnesses close by, who saw him in that close yesterday, but now any sightings that people believe have happened in the time subsequent to that. So, that decision by the police, that SIO, is that he wants to help, but he's also making, very, very clear, or she may be making very clear that don't approach him. We just want sightings. Don't take matters into your own hand. He is dangerous. And if he is in possession of this crossbow, and if it was that was used in the case as well, then of course, that's another reiteration to say, let us know if you see him and we'll be there as quickly as possible.
OK, Simon Harding, former senior detective at the Metropolitan Police, thanks very much. I think we can show you the shot, this live footage. This is where we're expecting an update from Hertfordshire Police very, very shortly regarding this triple murder in Bushey, scheduled to take place at 12:30, obviously slipping a little bit. We're expected to be hearing from Chief Superintendent John Simpson here at the police station in Hatfield. We will bring you that live as it happens. Maybe as we stay on this picture for a short time, let's just return to our correspondent Ashna Hurunag, who is down there in Bushey, in the community that has been affected by this. And people living there, Ashna, obviously aware last night from 7 o'clock, sheer police presence, enormous number of armed police, plus the air ambulance arriving. People really thought something truly dreadful, they knew something truly dreadful had happened, didn't they?
They did, Jane. This is now the scene of a triple murder inquiry where I am here in Bushey, and what we are seeing on our screens now is the police station where we are expecting to hear from Chief Superintendent John Simpson. Here he is.
Superintendent John Simpson, Head of Local Policing for Hertfordshire Constabulary. Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you. What's the connection between Kyle Clifford and this family?
Well, that was Chief Superintendent John Simpson giving a brief statement there outside Hatfield Police Station. Some new facts that we gleaned from that press statement. The victims, 25, 28 and 61. We know how old they are. He said it was a targeted incident, and then there is an extensive manhunt now underway involving specialist search officers and armed police. He said that this was an horrific incident. We knew that they were concerned about him having a crossbow. He said that a crossbow was used. Other weapons also may have been used. And he also gave a direct appeal to the man that they are looking for, that is 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, saying, Kyle, if you are seeing this, please make contact with the police on 999. Let's return to our correspondent, Ashna Hurunag, who was down there at the scene. Ashna, this is such an awful story, isn't it? These 3 women who have perished, and now we know that it was 2 women in their early 20s and an older woman as well, and that other weapons could also have been used here.
Crucial updates there from the Chief Superintendent, John Simpson from Hertfordshire Police. We know that constabulary are working or have been working through the night, and this is now entering their 17th hour of this manhunt. The crucial update in all of this, Kyle Clifford has yet to be found, and police there not taking questions from the media as they continue their vital work. As you say, Jane, we learnt key information about those 3 women who died in the house within this cul-de-sac behind me, beyond this cordon. We know that those 3 women were aged 28, 25 and 61 years old. We know that they were all related, but no real indication of what those relationships were between those women. We heard there from the Chief Superintendent that this was a targeted incident. You mentioned it there, Jane, but there was this direct appeal to Kyle Clifford that if he is watching, to hand himself in. And for those who may know of his whereabouts or may even be helping him, friends, families, associates, for them to contact 999, and crucially for members of the public to not approach him. We knew that this suspect, Kyle Clifford, was carrying and in possession of a crossbow, but we understand that he is perhaps in possession of other weapons, say the police. There is real pressure on the police now to really focus and drill down into who this person was and where he might have gone as soon as he fled this scene here in Bushey in Hertfordshire. We know that this area is very form of is where their search is concentrated on, but it's also stretching 13 miles down the road in Enfield in North London, where we understand that police are also using their resources there in conjunction with the Metropolitan Police and armed officers too, to try and search and unpick more of this suspect, searching his previous addresses, trying to speak to people who may have known him. But really the new information coming out there from that press conference from Chief Superintendent John Simpson from Hertfordshire Police, that the 3 women who lost their lives last night were 3 women aged 25, 28 and 61 years old. We know that they suffered such severe and ultimately fatal injuries that once officers and paramedics got to that scene, got to that house last night, they tried their best to do what they could to try and save those women's lives. But ultimately, they later went on to incredibly tragically die at the scene. And we heard this was a targeted incident. It is unclear whether Kyle Clifford knew these women or how he knew these women, but as police have referenced there, the word targeted, making it clear that perhaps giving us some indication as to the intention and motivation behind this incredibly heartbreaking triple murder inquiry.
Ashna, thanks very much. Let's return to police commentator Graham Wetton. Graham, just thinking about that phrase, what does a targeted incident mean?
Yeah, I heard that and was interested as well that the senior officer used that phrase just to describe the incident. I think without going into specific details, which clearly he cannot at this stage because they're still gathering information and evidence for possible criminal justice process. But to me, it means that he's known to them, that the victims are known to the suspect. And it in some way, it's supposed to reassure the public this is targeted on this address and these victims as such. So it suggests some form of knowledge or relationship between them. He's targeted that premises and those victims. And I think that's what he meant by targeted incident. So the general public are not sort of overly concerned that he's running around with a crossbow to attack everybody. He's targeted those premises and maybe one or all those victims for whatever reason.
And when we look at the ages of those victims that have just been revealed, 25, 28 and 61, a family, potentially a mother and her daughters.
That's what I read into it, Jane. Yes, I think so. You're looking at the ages. First thing I did when I wrote those ages down as he read them out, 25, 28 and 61, tends to suggest a parent and daughters or siblings, etc. So family hugely impacted by this tragic incident. The officers that attended the ambulance service, and obviously their family as well. The family needs to be at the forefront of our thoughts as well. But for the police, the immediate priority and focus is locating this individual. And you heard a direct appeal as well from the senior officer to Kyle himself to contact the police and hand himself in.
On that subject of that direct appeal, that also struck me as being slightly unusual. What would be the thinking behind doing that? Behind using his first name, directing this comment to him directly down the barrel of the camera?
I think it personalises it for me. And again, senior investigating officers will tell you the thinking, the rationale behind this, whether they do that or not, whether the individual is a sort of person that's likely to respond to that type of request or appeal. Is that you're using their first name, you're personalising it, you're asking them to give themselves up. You're explaining that it's been a targeted incident, so they would have heard possibly the whole press interview by the senior officer. So I think you're just making almost like a personal appeal to them to maybe just realise what's happened, hand themselves in before anything else happens in the police trying to locate them and detain them.
Also, the horrific nature of what the police seen, given some more information. He said, Chief Superintendent John Simpson, it was a horrific incident, and that as well as a crossbow, other weapons may have been used. Yeah,
I heard that and picked up on that point as well. We've been referencing this crossbow all the way because the police have released information that he may be in possession of a crossbow. So, the supposition, the speculation is that it was a crossbow and only a crossbow being used. But that phrase there, other weapons may be in possession of other weapons, suggests that there were other weapons used in this incident. And for the officers turning up and the ambulance service, the air ambulance, etc., all the emergency services. You never quite know what you're going to walk into, what you're going to find. You're going to find someone with like one stab wound or one crossbow injury or whatever. You get basic information that comes over the radio. As you're going to the calls, your mind's working through your decision making, what you've got to do, preserving life, saving life. You link in with the ambulance service if they get there before you or they get there after you. Tends to be the police that arrive first on scene because they're out patrolling. The ambulances tend to either come from a central location. So, 9 times, 8 times out of 10, it tends to be police officers on scene first of all. Hopefully the ambulance is there very quickly after. You're never too sure what you're going to walk into and literally going into someone's home address and finding 3 people very, very seriously injured. You then move into like trying to do the best you can to save their lives with the ambulance service, prioritising the victims. Your work head almost comes in, the professional approach to it. And you go through the emergency life-saving that you've been taught. You assist the ambulance crew as best you can because they're the professionals with this. That's their role. It's their expertise. You're trying to help them as much as you can. And then it's not until some time after, even possibly, around about now, this time today, when you're seeing it being reported and you're either sitting at home or you're just coming back into work again to start another shift. It starts to hit you really what you've dealt with and the huge impact it has on people that respond to this cannot be underestimated. But, the biggest impact is on the family. You hear those ages again, 25, 28 and 61. It just really starts to hit home.
It does indeed. Graham Wetton, thanks very much for joining us. Well, let's just remind you of that press conference that we saw a short time ago from Hatfield Police Station from Chief Superintendent John Simpson on this.
Good afternoon. I'm Chief Superintendent John Simpson, Head of Local Policing for Hertfordshire Constabulary. Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
What's the connection between Kyle Clifford and this family?
Well, that there, Chief Superintendent John Simpson. This is the scene of this awful attack that happened last night in Bushey in Hertfordshire, where these 3 women perished in this home. An enormous emergency response when this happened last night. Ambulances, air ambulances, hazardous area response teams, as well as the police, all went down to this scene. But despite their best efforts, they were unable to save 3 women who were inside this property. We now know that these women were aged 25, 28 and 61. And the Chief Superintendent there describing this as a targeted incident. An extensive manhunt is now underway with specialist search officers involving armed police across Hertfordshire and London. Let's return to Martin Underhill, former police and crime commissioner for Dorset and former police officer also. And Martin, I wonder what your thoughts were on the psychology of making a direct appeal to Kyle Clifford there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Jane. And obviously, in my day job now, I lecture in criminology. I would be surprised if the police did that without receiving advice either from a criminological psychologist or the College of Policing, who have a bank of experts who can help in certain cases, and this is one of them. It's a bold step to do what he's done. There are lots of negativity vibes over appealing to criminals, going right back to the Yorkshire Ripper, when the cop in charge, George, started talking to him. So it's a bold move to make. The fact he's done it, and it was done very briefly, straight down the camera, suggests to me that he has had outside help, a psychologist or a criminologist, or both, saying, you know, this appears to be a domestic incident. I mean, everything we're being told now strongly suggests that this person has gone to a partner or an ex-partner's house and liquidated, literally, a family, which is appalling. But because of that nature, the fact that it is looking towards a domestic incident, the fact the police used the word targeted, not only to reassure the public, but also to suggest, in inverted commas, this is a domestic incident. That means there's various psychological things at play which aren't at play if it's a random attack. So I suspect they've got some specialists from the College of Policing and or the NCA helping them. And I think what that officer did in that press briefing was scripted and planned.
Also repeating the appeal to the public that if anyone is harbouring him, to get in touch, not to approach him, but various different ways that they can get in touch with the police. Is this the police best hope now of finding him, that he must have had help, therefore that needs to be the person that they get to help them?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at cases such as this, never forget, if this is a domestic incident, and it does appear it's leaning more and more towards that, with a mother and 2 daughters slayed in a house. If it's a domestic incident, the other scenario is that this person could literally walk into a police station. And that has happened many, many times before. The enormity of what they've done sinks in, and they literally walk into a police station. Now, that doesn't happen in stranger attacks, but it does in domestic incidents. So the police have to cater for that. They also have to cater for the main way they're going to get him is through the public. But of course, we've got new technology now that can actually help find him over and above what the public do. For example, the Metropolitan Police, which is inches away from this location, has facial recognition, one of the best facial recognition systems in the world. And the offender appears to live in London, in Enfield. So it may be that facial recognition will be a quick win here for the police to bring this dangerous person to justice. But if that doesn't work, the second and probably the first resort is the public, which is historically always solves cases such as this. But of course, the worst nightmare for the police is a member of the public sees this man and challenges him and then gets shot with a crossbow. So they have to always end with, please do not approach dial 999.
OK, Martin Underhill, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Let's get more reaction now with Dr. Enema Cunningham, who is a senior lecturer in criminology at the University of East London. Dr. Cunningham, very interesting to talk to you. Just to get your thoughts about this press conference that we just saw. Why do you think the police have made this direct appeal?
I think, as your former speaker said, it was a direct and a personal appeal to Kyle to come forward, and that actually would be quite persuasive, I think, and it would be quite useful for him to hear that they know his name and they know what has gone on.
Martin Underhill, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Let's get more reaction now. I'm awfully sorry, Dr. Cunningham. We appear to have some sound problems. A bit difficult to hear you. Let's just try and speak to you again. And in terms of what the police will have been advised before they made this press conference, will they have consulted criminologists like yourself? Will they have consulted psychologists before they made this appeal?
They'll be using specially trained officers, and they will have been looking at violence against women and girls specialists.
Enormous apologies. There appears to be some gremlins on the line. We appear to be getting our feed of our output as well as you, and we can't quite hear you say. But hopefully we will return to you in the next hour, because it'd be very interesting to get your expertise and your understanding about why the police have taken this unusual step in a first press conference of making a direct appeal to the man who is believed to be potentially responsible, certainly believed to be involved in what has happened in this house in Bushey. Let's just remind you of the breaking news that we have been bringing you throughout the morning here on Sky News into the afternoon. This is live footage. This is off from my helicopter of the scene in Bushey of a manhunt that is underway after 3 women who are thought to be related were found dead in Hertfordshire. Now, police have warned that the suspect may have a crossbow, but may also have other weapons as well, they say. And the person that they're trying to find is the man who is on the left of your screen, 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, who is from Enfield in North London, now wanted in connection with the deaths, which have been described by the police in that press conference as a targeted incident. They're saying that there is now an extensive manhunt underway. Specialist police officers and armed police officers are looking for him. The police were called to this house on Ashland Close just after 7 o'clock last night. The 3 women, they said it was a horrific incident, but had very, very significant injuries, and the women died a short time later at the scene. Now, at that press conference a short time ago, the police made a direct appeal to that man. They said, Kyle, if you are seeing this, please make contact with the police on 999. There has been enormous reaction to this. We've had response from the Home Secretary, the new Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. The loss of 3 women's lives in Bushey last night is truly shocking. My thoughts are with the family and friends of those who have been killed and with the community. I'm being kept fully updated. I urge people to support Hertfordshire Police with any information about this case. We'll be staying with this story. Kamali will be bringing you all the latest on this. Stay with Sky News. We will be bringing you the full story first.
afternoon. You're watching Sky News Today, and we begin this hour with our breaking news. Police in the last half hour said that armed officers are involved in a major manhunt in the search for a suspect believed to have murdered 3 women in Hertfordshire. This is the place in Bushey in Hertfordshire where police arrived after a call to 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, investigating a triple murder in Ashlyn Close. Now, officers say they are urgently looking for a man called Kyle Clifford after they revealed that they're investigating the killings of 3 people aged 25, 28 and 61. Now, a short time ago, Hertfordshire Police gave us this update.
Police were called to a property in Ashlyn Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
Well, our Chief Superintendent John Simpson there from Hertfordshire Police with that update. And just a short while ago, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, commented on the situation, writing on social media that the loss of 3 women's lives in Bushey last night is truly shocking. She writes, "My thoughts are with the family and friends of those who have been killed and with the community." She writes, "I am being kept fully updated. I urge people to support Hertfordshire Police with any information about this case." Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Alice Porter, who's following this story for us. Alice, what more do we know about the ongoing manhunt?
Well, this manhunt has now been going on for around 18 hours, so there's going to be enormous pressure on the police to try and find Kyle Clifford, who's now been on the run really since last night when they attended this property in Ashlyn Close. Those pictures have been widely circulated today, and it was at that property in Bushey, which is a town just outside of Watford in Hertfordshire, north of London, where police were called to the scene, as well as the ambulance service and the air ambulance, so an extensive operation, and 3 women were found with significant and serious injuries, and sadly the 3 women died at the scene. Now, we have heard in the last half hour or so from the police, who gave a few more details about the victims, who are 3 women aged 25, 28 and 61, and they are understood to have been related to each other. We don't know what their relationship is with Kyle Clifford, but we do understand that this was meant to be a targeted incident. That's what we've heard from the police. And this manhunt that's now underway, that has been going on for some time. It went through the night, it's carrying on throughout this day, a manhunt that involves armed police officers. Now, the police a couple of hours ago released information that say they are concerned that he may be carrying a crossbow, but they've also said he may have other weapons that may have been used. And so clearly somebody that they consider potentially armed and dangerous. And so they are urging anyone with any information to come forward and not to challenge Kyle Clifford really significantly. This is a 26-year-old with links to the Enfield area. They are urging anyone who sees him to not challenge him and to call police. And in fact, in that press conference that we've just seen there, it was striking to see the police make a direct appeal to Kyle Clifford, urging him to hand himself forward to the police. And interesting there, and also significant that it was around 8 o'clock this morning that they released his name and photo. It's not something that's always done with police operations, but it was done in this incident. Clearly confident that he's somebody that they want to speak to in connection with this triple murder that happened last night. Now, you've just read the response from Yvette Cooper. Obviously, this is putting pressure on a new government who've talked a lot about crime, and this is certainly going to be a test to have a triple murder to happen in this way, very much in the suburbs, in a very leafy middle-class area of Hertfordshire. Incredibly unusual for a murder to happen, let alone a triple murder. But it's certainly going to reignite concerns about violence against women and girls in this way, to have 3 women killed in this way. But it's also going to reignite concerns that we've been hearing from some of our guests on Sky News about crossbows. The previous government had considered tightening the laws around crossbows, and in fact they did call for evidence on crossbows. It's understood that there may be around 300,000 crossbows in this country, but currently there's no requirement to have a licence for a crossbow, although of course it is illegal to carry one in public without a reasonable excuse. So I think certainly the events of last night that are clearly carrying into today will reignite concerns that many people have about cross arms, crossbows, and so there will be concern about that. But also, I think really the attention now is on trying to find Kyle Clifford, and the concern really is how far he could have travelled. This is an investigation that's been going on since last night. It was 7 p.m. that the police were called to this property in Ashling Close in Bushey. It's now entering 18 hours since that happened, and so the police will be desperately trying to find more information, and they will be looking beyond the area itself, because he could have travelled into London, could have travelled further afield in the country, or may have gone abroad. Those are all possible avenues that the police will be exploring. But to recap, we've got 3 women who are believed to be related to each other, 25, 28 and 61. They understand that they died from their injuries, their significant injuries last night at the scene at this house in Ashling Close in Bushey. Now, this manhunt that's been underway involves armed police officers, which, given that he may be carrying a crossbow or other weapons, and that's what we were hearing from the police. So a huge concern there. And of course, the police did make that direct appeal to Kyle Clifford to come forward and hand himself in to the police.
Alice, the facts that this individual was identified so early, making this a unique moment for the police as they continue their investigations, you say, going on for now 18 hours, that this manhunt has been ongoing. Clifford, who is known to be from Enfield in North London, being sought by police, armed officers on the lookout for him, thought to possibly be carrying a crossbow. Now, as we've been talking, Alice, we have had some more information that's coming to us from the local area. Pupils at the St Michael's Primary School in Enfield said to be being kept inside the school as a precaution as the manhunt for Clifford continues. The head teacher has told us here at Sky News that the police have conducted a reassurance visit and told them to continue as normal as possible, and the officers, she said, are doing as much as they can. But that is a local primary school in Enfield. remember, so slightly south of where this incident happened, but where Kyle Clifford is known to be from, that is now keeping its pupils inside for the time being. Police have been there and conducted a reassurance visit just to make sure that staff and pupils are being given all the information they can. And why don't you, Alice, just give us a sense of the area? This happened, as we think, last night. The call came into police at around 7 o'clock to Ashling Close, which is in Bushey. Give us some insight into what kind of area this is and what has been the community response so far to an incident that will have sent shockwaves all around.
Yeah, I think shockwaves really is the word there. I think this is a community who are really in shock there. For those of you who are watching, you can see those photos. This is very much a wealthy suburbia, a middle-class sort of area with, as you can see, detached houses. This is an area that's north of London. It's sort of very close to Watford in the Hertfordshire area. This is a place which many people go to retire, although there also are professionals. And as you were saying, near to, not far from Enfield as well, which, as you can say, has schools as well. So this will be something that has shocked many people in the community. We have been hearing from some of the neighbours who've said, you know, we would see one neighbour has said we would see them, presumably these three women who've been killed, see them passing by and they would say good morning. It's really sad what's happened, very shocking. And to have last night at a time where people may have been coming back from work, people may be walking their dogs, and suddenly to see multiple police cars, ambulances, helicopters landing. I mean, that is an extraordinary sight for people in all areas of the country, but I think particularly in an area like this, you really wouldn't expect to see something like that happen. It's not an urban area. As you can see in the pictures, it very much fringes on very green, leafy spaces. And we have been hearing that of the outpouring of support in the community, that the local church is asking anyone to come and light a candle to remember the three victims, these three women who are 25, 28 and 61, who are believed to be related to each other. We don't know the relationship that they may or may not have had with Kyle Clifford, but we do understand that it was a targeted attack. And Kyle Clifford continues to be on the run. But it's interesting what you were just saying there about schools receiving a visit from the police in Enfield, because it's understood that Kyle Clifford had links to the Enfield area. And clearly, as we are in the 18th hour of him being on the run, police have yet to track him down and don't know whether he will stay close to where he may have contacts, he may have family and friends who may be able to provide some sort of shelter, or whether he will have gone further afield. But we do understand that armed officers are in pursuit, and it's armed because of the concern that he may be armed with a crossbow or another weapon that may have been used in this attack last night.
Alice Porter, for now, thank you for that update. Just to update viewers as to where we are currently with this, the manhunt continues for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford following an incident at Ashling Close in Bushey in which three women aged 25, 28 and 61 were killed. Police earlier telling us this was a targeted attack and a horrific incident. And just to update you on some of the wider commentary from local officials, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire has also posted on social media saying, "My thoughts are with the family and friends of the women who have shockingly killed in the terrible incident in Bushey." This is Jonathan Ash Edwards, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire. He goes on, "It will no doubt send shockwaves through the local community and across Hertfordshire." He says, "I am being kept updated by the police and I urge the public to support the police with any information about the whereabouts of the named suspect." That is Kyle Clifford, 26, who's got links to the Enfield area. His name and picture released early on in the investigation, which, as Alice said, has now been running for some 18 hours. Let's bring in Graham Wetton, a police commentator, for more on this. Graham, good to have you with us. Thanks. We do appreciate your expertise at times like this. I just want to pick up on that news that we got just a short while ago, 10 minutes or so ago, about pupils in a school in Enfield being kept inside. I mean, how usual is that in a manhunt situation to start, essentially locking down schools and keeping pupils indoors?
Well, it isn't usual, and whether it's actually a lockdown or just it's maybe advice or guidance that it might be advisable for them to keep the children within the buildings just while this search is underway. It depends on what information the police have got, if they've searched any premises nearby. He comes from Enfield area, so it's possible it's the school closest to his residential home. So if they suspect or believe he's tried to make his way back towards his residential home, and the school is in that local catchment area, the local area to where he's possibly going back to, it's probably just advice and guidance that it might be best to keep the children within the building just while the police search is underway. So there's probably nothing more to it than that. Just the officers visiting the school, a bit of reassurance, but then saying, look, just for today, keep them within the building while the search is underway, because it's possible he's gone back towards a residential address that is close by.
Yeah, and I guess, Graham, that will be sort of intelligence-led, won't it? But it also would be the hunch, I guess, to go back to where this person is from, to look in that area first. I mean, could we expect that more schools, local schools, are closed? Will there be sort of more of an effort to try and keep people out of harm's way if harm could be caused to the public by this individual being on the run, remembering, of course, that the police say he may have a crossbow as well as other weapons? There haven't been other warnings yet that I can see.
No, and I wouldn't expect so, no. I think it's probably, if that's the school closest to his home address, there's no reason to close schools or put them in lockdown unless they've got significant or specific evidence, information that he is in that locality. It's probably just a reassurance visit and maybe some advice or guidance. The school rightly are probably acting on let's be safer rather than just let the children go out and play in the playground. So just for today and for one lunchtime, we'll keep them in the building. I probably think it's nothing more than that at this stage.
And one does wonder what the kids have been told about the situation as well. You want to keep them sort of as safe as possible from the potential horror of the story. And Graham, look, talk to us about the investigation, because you will have dealt with many things like this. And of course, we do have these stories, unfortunately, not too frequently, but often in the news when there is a hunt for an individual who is thought to have committed a horrific crime, putting out his name and his picture so early on. What does that sort of tell us about what the police know at this stage?
I think the press conference almost like supported or substantiated that. The senior officer gave his name again, actually made a direct personal appeal, which again is fairly unusual in these cases, but they've clearly got some information or evidence linking into the incident itself. The manhunt has been ongoing since late last night. They announced his name, put a picture out. It's clear the police need the public's help as much as possible to locate him as quickly and as speedily as possible, which is why the public appeal has probably gone out so quickly. It's unusual in certain circumstances. The senior investigating officer would have to make a balanced decision that in this instance, with the evidence that they have, the information that they have, we need the public's help to locate this individual. It also puts a direct appeal to the individual concerned and anybody that might know or even have assisted him since last night. So it may well be late last night he's turned up on someone's doorstep without maybe explaining the full circumstances. They would have known at the time. So it's almost like twofold. It's going out to everybody who may know him, but also anybody that may see him. But again, combined with that warning not to approach him if they think they see him, there's any sightings at all, to dial 999. And that was emphasised with the fact that he's possibly still in possession of a crossbow and maybe other weapons as well.
Talk to us about the force area response as well, Graham. We saw Chief Superintendent John Simpson giving that news conference earlier, but, we've got the major crime unit for Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire involved. I presume that the Met will be involved as well. What's the coordination like in the early stages of these investigations to make sure that these individuals are tracked down? And where does the search begin? I mean, I guess it doesn't work out sort of concentric circles, does it? You go to the areas where you think it might be likely and you call on your colleagues and other forces to do that.
Yeah, the investigation itself has been run by the Major Investigation Unit, and that is like a three-force combined Major Investigation Unit. So as you mentioned, Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire. Then they've got two separate hubs, or they did have two separate hubs that they work from. So they will be running the actual crime investigation. The Met will be involved because his address is in the Metropolitan Police force area. So there'll be close links with the Metropolitan Police. in possibly searching addresses known to the suspect, addresses associated with him, looking at cameras, trying to locate how he got to the scene last night, and then how he's left the scene, the route he's taken, any vehicles he's been in, checking any doorbell footage, camera footage, trying to basically track his route away from the premises, which may give an indication as to where he's gone next, looking at any information held about the individual. So, as we mentioned, social media accounts, his personal accounts, phone details, etc. Anything that can possibly point to where he's made off to and is located. So a combined force area, but all forces will have this information now. They're all watching the news feeds, they're watching the police updates, heard the press conference as well. So, most officers working currently at the moment will be aware of this incident, and force control rooms will be ready to react to any sort of sightings of a possible suspect.
So literally all over the country, for officers that are out and about will have sort of this person's picture either in front of them or certainly in their mind's eye and keeping an eye out for him.
Yeah, it will be focused in the areas they've mentioned. So Enfield in northwest London, Watford, Bushey, Hertfordshire, Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire. But they may well have more information about the route he's taken as he's left the premises. So the direction has gone off in initially, but then that's coupled with any knowledge or information, intelligence they've got about him. They mentioned the fact it's a targeted attack, which strongly suggests he's known very well to the victims.
Yeah.
So there may well be linked addresses from the venue itself that they'll be looking at as well.
You mentioned social media as well, Graham. I wonder, from your perspective, what help / hindrance is social media and social media accounts at this stage of the investigation? Because you can imagine there is a lot of commentary on social media from people with little expertise in manhunts.
It can be both. It can be a great help, as we've seen in other cases, but it also, as you've mentioned, it can be a hindrance with almost like too much involvement or conjecture, speculation that may take police away from the focus, which at the moment is finding him and then gathering the evidence. So it can be both, and it's up to the investigation team to almost like filter out, and they have to action the information that comes in. So they'll prioritise information that comes in. They'll corroborate or link it with maybe other sources to see if they've got more than one source saying one piece of information. You've got two or three sources saying roughly the same thing. That would tend to make it more of a priority or an action to be dealt with quicker rather than some of the others. So it's a huge task for any investigation team. They've been working through the night, filtering through everything that's come in, and even more so today as everybody's waking up and maybe reacting to this information.
A huge amount of resource needed as well. And I wonder, Graham, the split, the dividing of the forces, you'll have people within the control room going through some of that electronic information as well, and then you'll have people out and about. Will you just sort of looking in the old school way to try and see if they can come across them?
Yeah, it's a combined effort. So you'll have a team of like analysts or detective investigators looking through anything online, looking through various records and indices, etc., to see if there's any other information or evidence that they can work on. Plus the officers out on the streets in the local vicinity, around the venue itself, knocking on doors, speaking to residents, any associates or friends they've picked up from the venue itself where the victims were, trying to speak to them, any information known by the police about the individual themselves for people to contact. So a hugely combined effort, a major investigation being run by Hertfordshire, but supported by other forces as well whenever addresses or even individuals come up that may need speaking to.
And Graham, the suspected weapon involved as well, this crossbow, I mean, those who are paying attention will have noticed that there have been, one or two other incidents involving a crossbow being used in recent years and recent months as well. What's the feeling within the police service about this kind of weapon and what needs to be done to stop them falling into the wrong hands?
Well, they are lethal weapons. They're lethal weapons, as clearly has been demonstrated in other cases. So without knowing the full facts of this particular incident, we've seen them used in other cases. They are lethal weapons. No actual restriction to actually get a licence or be registered having one. I think the Crossbows Act, I think it's 1987. So it's not an old piece of legislation, but also it's not been updated or renewed to my knowledge. So, there's been calls before to maybe license these, have them registered. I think the only restrictions are you can't sell it to an under 18, and if an under 18's got one, they've got to be supervised by someone over 21. So I think it needs a review. It's good to see the Home Secretary has already come out and mentioned this case, and she's aware of it and been updated. Maybe Parliament and politicians need to have a look at crossbow legislation and putting more restrictions and controls in place, because we've seen an increasing number of similar incidents where crossbows are being used and possibly lawfully possessed, but then taken out the streets and used unlawfully. So they are potentially a lethal weapon, as lethal as a firearm, yet they don't have anything like similar controls around them.
Yeah, in terms of how you can get hold of them. What... I suppose it's a new threat for officers as well and for the public, isn't it, to have something like this, that kind of weapon being used by criminals?
It is, but police officers are trained in risk assessment, threat assessment. It would have the similar sort of threat assessment that a firearm or a knife should have. So it should be armed officers dealing with this. Unarmed officers, as they're referred to, have possibly, a baton and or taser. Now, taser, I would suggest, and having done risk and threat assessment on similar types of incidents, taser's useful, but it isn't the best method to counter either a crossbow or a firearm, or even a knife-bladed implement. It should be firearms officers that are deployed to deal with them. So unarmed officers, albeit they may have a taser, but unarmed officers would only ever, or should only ever, almost like contain or control the suspect or the location, while they wait for armed officers, properly equipped officers, to attend and deal with any suspect with those sort of implements. They are potentially lethal. The distance you need to get to somebody with a taser is closer than is comfortable, I would suggest. The best method is by a firearms officer armed with a firearm.
Indeed. All right, Graham, look, for now, thank you very much for the expertise. We do appreciate it. Graham Wetson, their police commentator. And just to update viewers as to what we know at this point, police are hunting 26-year-old Kyle Clifford following an incident at Ashlyn Close in Bushey just after 7 o'clock last night. 3 women aged 25, 28 and 61 died in the incident in what police said was a targeted attack and a horrific incident. They believe that Clifford may well have been armed with a crossbow, but say that other weapons may well have been used during the attack as well. Now, residents close to the scene have told Sky News that the area around Ashlyn Close is really quiet.
Everybody just turned up at 7 o'clock and it was like an explosion in the street of police cars and ambulances, and it was, I would say in just this little bit here was at least 10 police cars, and they were all down here. And we didn't know what was going on, me or the neighbour, we didn't have a clue. And they just suddenly noticed there was police outside in black uniform with sort of semi-automatic guns walking around. So I initially thought it might be terrorists or something, but that's all I can say. And then they were here all last night. Obviously it's been blocked off and everything's been going on, but it's been a bit of a shock because it's a really residential area. And there isn't, nothing much ever goes on round here at all, apart from people going back and forwards to work, and back and forwards to where they go.
Just hearing about this individual, when you saw his face pop up, that they're trying to search for this guy.
I don't know who he is, never seen him. Well, I never saw anybody round here carrying a crossbow at all, never at all. I never see it. Well, it was a surprise. It's the volume of people all of a sudden turning up, all the police, all the ambulance, everything going on all of a sudden. It just came all of a sudden. It was like an amazing thing, and there it was. And I knew it must be very serious because there was so many police here, and there was so many police cars and everything going on, people going up and down the street. The place was fenced off straight away. So that's all I can tell you, really.
Well, look, it's horrific. I came yesterday in the evening after my wife called me several times. She was like panicking what's happening. There was a dozen police cars down the road, so she's asking what's going on. I obviously came a bit later, then I got calls from other people saying that something tragic had happened. I only learned this morning that there was actually 3 women who had been brutally killed. which is horrific. I've lived here for many years. I've been in the area since '99. So it's a nice, quiet area, very unassuming, professionals, people who have retired. So it is a nice, quiet suburban area. So yeah, a situation like this undoubtedly will be troubling for a lot of people.
The shock of local residents around Ashling close to this incident. Police continue their manhunt for a 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. Let's speak now to Dr. Emma Cunningham, a senior lecturer in criminology at the University of East London. Dr. Cunningham, thanks very much for making the time to speak to us today. Just give us your sort of assessment of how the police investigation to try and track this man down will go.
Yes, it sounds like the police are doing a number of things to reassure the community by going to the school and checking that everyone's okay there, but also by reassuring the community by being there in large numbers and looking for this person who they've spoken to on camera, and they've spoken to using his first name. I think what this does show and what it does illustrate is that this horrific incident illustrates that for many women that the home isn't necessarily a safe place to be.
Yeah,
and it seems like it hasn't been for these women in this particular incident. Yeah. And although we've heard the neighbours talk about a lovely quiet area, etc., you do see these things happen in cases where domestic violence and violence against women and girls can be seen in places where you would often think of everyone as being safe. Yeah.
And Dr. Cunningham, I mean, is that the inference we can draw from this? Look, it's hard and it's speculation, but I guess informed speculation at this point, that the individual named, picture out the three individuals there who were all of the same family, that they were, of course, known to one another. As the police said, this was a targeted attack.
Yes, yeah. It sounds to me like when they were telling us that this was a targeted attack and that it was three women who had suffered these horrendous injuries and had sadly died from those injuries, it sounded to me like it would be one of these cases, yes.
And it, of course, as you say, does bring to mind the issue of violence against women and the safety of women at the moment, and sort of the seriousness in which some of the cases of domestic violence that don't rise to this sort of level are taken.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might be the case, and we don't know, it's pure speculation currently, but it might be the case that this person is known to the police. Certainly, they need to be looking down every avenue for this person, and that's what it seems like they're doing. So they've got, I remember that they said that they had extensive resources in that police bulletin and that report that was given. And I imagine they're using all the expertise that the police have in cases such as this. And as one of your speakers had said earlier, there have been other crossbow cases in recent times that we've seen. And that might be another thing that needs looking into in the near future, the legislation around such weaponry as that.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of changes to the legislation does there need to be then, do you think, Dr. Cunningham, at the moment? The understanding is that people can obviously purchase these weapons and the restrictions are nowhere like as severe as if you're trying to get hold of a firearm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the whole answer in these incidents, but I do think it warrants further attention that we are seeing them more often in violent attacks, and therefore we do need to have another look at just what could be put in place. Although the police did say that they thought other weaponry had also been used as well. So it remains to be seen what comes out in the reports following this.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we say, Dr. Cunningham, the police are still seeking this man. Not coming on for 19 hours now that the manhunt's been running for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. From what you understand about this case and from your expertise in previous sort of investigations like this, because all three victims were in the same house and because the speculation or the inference may well be that they were known to the victim, does that change in any way the search for the perpetrator?
I don't think so, and I think the police have to put public safety to the fore, which is exactly what they're doing. They're saying to people, look at this picture, look out for this person, but do not approach. So obviously this person has been involved in these offences and therefore is dangerous. However, it was a targeted attack to 3 women, presumably relatives in the same home. And so it would be incredibly unlikely, I think, that this person would attack anyone else. But you would also always have to remain cautious when someone's, holding arms of any type.
Yeah, indeed. And in terms of the investigation, what did you make of the fact that his face and name was out there so quickly? And at which point, or perhaps it's happening now, the police are going and speaking to his relatives, his close friends, those that know him, to try and find out, whether or not he's there, I guess, but also to see if a message pressure can be put on him to turn himself in, as was requested by the officer.
I think they'll be going down all avenues, and that will be one of them, because they will need to build a picture of this man, and they will need to know about him, what he's like, where his links are, who he's involved with. All of those things will add to their search, and it'll all be intelligence-led in terms of looking for him, given those facts that they can find out about his friendship groups and his knowledge of the area. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Cunningham, just stay with me for a moment, because I want to bring viewers an update that we have here. And Sky News now understands that Kyle Clifford used to work as a private security guard, the 26-year-old person who was being sought by police in connection with the murder of 3 women in Bushey, a national close in Bushey. Used to be a security guard. That is coming into sources here at Sky News. And I guess that then opens up that, of course, this individual's work colleagues and work life will be a source of information and a line of inquiry for the police as well, Dr. Cunningham.
Definitely, and definitely. I mean, part of my research has looked at police officers who have been involved in violent acts, and we've seen those in recent times. And I would guess some of those same points would be pertinent for someone who's been involved in private security, I would think.
Now, as the police try and expand their search and gather as much information as possible, how useful is it to them to be looking at social media? It's obviously a very different time now to, even 10 years ago when manhunts were launched. How useful is it to be able to go through social media and to try and draw out information from a lot of the data that is put on?
Yeah, I think a lot of the data that feeds the intelligence is useful from social media. We've seen the rise of the use of WhatsApp, for instance, around different groups using things like that have come to light, not just politicians, but also police officers, etc. And that's come under a lot of scrutiny in recent years. And that could be a means of trying to find out some further information about this particular man and his beliefs about, women, etc. Those might be some of the leads that are followed up. But I do think the police will be combing every avenue that they possibly can, not just in a physical sense, in a digital sense as well.
And of course, the search just goes on until this individual is found, isn't it? And the sort of the resource, the intensive nature of that search, I guess, has to at some point come to the end of it. You know, how do the police continue to sort of pour resources into this thing? Because obviously everyone is human and everyone has to have time to rest and recover.
I think they'll use whatever resource they've got. And I think the good thing about policing is they will get other officers drafted in to take over from ones who are tired. So, this is it's a national issue, but violence against women and girls is global, as the UN have shown us with their studies. But in terms of the resource, I'm fairly confident that the resource will be found in order to prioritise this as such a high-level incident that requires, a conclusion.
Indeed. All right, Dr. Emma Cunningham, Senior Lecturer in Criminology, thanks so much for your expertise this afternoon. Thank you for that. So our continuing coverage of this manhunt that is on for Kyle Clifford, 26, wanted in connection with the murder of 3 women at a house in Hertfordshire last night. The hunt continues, coming on for some 19 hours. There's been a comment from the Police Crime Commissioner for Hertfordshire, Jonathan Ash-Edwards, who said that his thoughts are with the family and friends of the women who've been shockingly killed, saying it will no doubt have sent shockwaves through the local community and across Hertfordshire, and that he is being kept updated by the police and urges the public to support the police with any information about the whereabouts of the named suspect. We had heard from Hertfordshire Police a short while ago, who put out a direct appeal for Kyle Clifford to hand himself in, and this was Chief Superintendent John Simpson just a short while ago.
Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
That's Chief Superintendent John Simpson from Hertfordshire Police giving an update in the last hour or so on the manhunt for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. We're seeing here we have aerial shots of the area of Bushey in Hertfordshire, suburbia, detached homes, a leafy suburb to the north of London where this horrific incident has taken place. 3 women killed inside a home. Let's bring in our correspondent Alice Porter, who was following this for us. Alice, thanks for staying with us. So, look, police were called shortly after 7 o'clock last night.
Yes, that's right. And it's a time in which people would be out and about walking their dogs, getting home from work. So the police's hope is that some of those people who lived in Ashland Close may have crucial evidence as to what happened last night, because it was around 7 p.m. that police were called. There were also the ambulance service was called and the air ambulances. So the helicopters arrived on the scene. And unfortunately, the police officers and the teams went inside and found 3 women with serious injuries. And sadly, despite the best efforts of the paramedics, the 3 women who are believed to be from the same family, and we have in the last hour or so got some details about their ages. They're 25, 28 and 61, believed to be related to each other. They unfortunately passed away at the scene at this house that may well be the house for one of the women, if not more than one of them. We just don't know yet. Now, that was at 7 p.m. last night, and there has been a manhunt for Kyle Clifford, who is the 26-year-old suspect in this case. Now, this manhunt has been going on for almost 19 hours, really. And of course, the concern from the police will be how quickly he has been able to get away from the scene. They worked through the night trying to find him, and we heard the last hour or so from police that they made a direct appeal to Kyle Clifford, urging him to make contact with the police. But Sky News also has been able to glean some more information about Kyle Clifford. We understand that he has previously worked as a private security guard, and that information may well be followed up by police as we speak, perhaps speaking to previous colleagues of his, perhaps trying to work out what his role was as a private security guard, trying to work out if he's got any contacts, because of course the manhunt really is underway to try and find out where he is. We understand he's from the Enfield area, and interesting enough, as we were just saying in the last half hour or so, is that pupils have been kept inside a primary school in Enfield. This is pupils at St Michael's Primary School as a precaution. As we were hearing from one of the previous guests, it shouldn't be anything of cause for concern. But of course, there's a heavy police presence in the area. Not just a heavy police presence. We know that the police are armed, and the reason that they are armed is because they believe that Kyle Clifford may well have a crossbow, and he also could be armed with another weapon, and that's why the police are armed. They believe this attack that happened last night, they believe it was a targeted incident, and they are concerned that it may have been undertaken with a crossbow, but other weapons have not been used, and therefore police are urging anyone with information to come forward, and if they see Kyle Clifford, to not approach him and to contact the police because of concerns for any member of the public and their safety. But this will certainly reignite a lot of discussion that there has been about crossbows. We've been hearing from some of our guests today about the concern. This was something that the previous government had considered tightening the laws around crossbows. They called for evidence on this issue because currently there's no requirement to have a licence for a crossbow, although it is illegal to carry one in public without a reasonable excuse. So this situation that's been going on now for some time will certainly reignite concerns that many people have about crossbows, that there's understood to be around 300,000 in the country. So there's going to be a concern there, but also I think it's going to reignite concerns about violence against women. These are 3 women who are related to each other, we understand, who were in a home. This is a very leafy suburbia, middle-class home. We've been hearing from people in the area that it's very quiet, a very safe area, but sadly we do know that women aren't always safe in their homes, and that is sadly the case here with these 3 women who were sadly killed last night. So it sadly has reignited concerns about violence against women and girls. We have heard from our new Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who said she's been kept up to date with this situation, and there'll be certainly pressure on new government who's very much campaigned to be tough on crime. This will be a challenge for them, as well as the police officers involved trying to very much hope that Kyle Clifford hands himself into police and are urging anyone with information to come forward.
Indeed. All right. Alice Porter there, our correspondent, thank you for that. Let's bring in former Chief Superintendent with the Met Police, Dal Babu, for his expertise on this. Dal, afternoon to you. Thanks for making the time to speak to us today. From what you've seen and read so far, what's your initial assessment of the investigation?
Well, I think it's fast-moving, but I think, yet again, we see horrific violence against women, and I think it's a stain on our country. The level of violence against women and girls, and we know that 3 women have lost their lives. But sadly, we really need to challenge this in an effective way. And I hope the new administration that's come in will have a robust policy to deal with the violence against women. Almost 3 women are murdered every week by people they know, partners, ex-partners. And I'm not speculating on who the suspect is, but this is pretty horrific. The entire women in a family could potentially have been all wiped out. Very, very sad.
And Dal, from your experience, how do you sort of toughen the sense against, violence against women? What steps need to be taken? What would you want to hear from the new government, from the Home Secretary, to try and make sure that these kind of incidents don't occur?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge the scale of the problem. It's shocking. And it's very, very rare to deal with a situation like this without sort of being emotional and being upset about the level of violence and how it continues. So I think what we need to do is have a real debate around the extent of the problem and make sure that we put resources in place, not at the end where we're doing manhunts for suspects who have been accused of 3 murders in this case, but we're actually looking at work we do with children at school age and make sure that young boys are taught at a very, very young age the importance of respect and the importance of working collaboratively with young women. And I think we need to make sure that domestic violence lessons are taught in schools so people understand what an acceptable relationship is and how it's never acceptable to have an abusive relationship, whether it's coercive control or physical violence, as there appears to have been in this case. So I think we really need to take that on board. I think this investigation is, I've worked in Enfield. Enfield is where the suspect is apparently lived or used to live. We know that Bushey is very close by. It's about 12 miles away from Enfield. And Enfield's a very, very leafy borough. Compared to a lot of London boroughs. So the police will be looking at phone intelligence, they'll be looking at CCTV, doorbell camera footage, footage from vehicles, and they'll want to try and balance sharing information with the public and the press and ensuring that the press are able to provide information to them and the public provide information. I think just listening to your item just beforehand and the police officer asking the suspect to call 999 to arrange for him to be handed in safely. I think that's very, very important. Suspects will be watching news items. So it's important that the suspect understands that, he either presents himself to an armed officer or he dials 999 and is detained safely so this matter can be resolved. But at the moment, there'll be a lot of people who are very, very anxious in and around the Enfield area. And indeed the Bushey area where the murder happens.
And that's part of the police strategy, isn't it, Dal, to put this man's face and name out there so quickly. It happened at 8:30 this morning that the police released his name and his image.
And that's unusual by itself, because what normally happens when a suspect is wanted by police, you don't put that images out to the press, but the police will have been working with responsible press organisations like Sky, BBC, ITV, who will be very, very responsible about the reporting. They'll understand the restrictions and they'll not sensationalise it. The same can't be said of social media. And I think what you end up with is people who really don't know what they're doing, want a moment of glory, will be putting information on social media which may or may not be true, which may cause alarm. often these people have no thoughts about the distress that the families of these 3 murder victims will be going through. So it's a plea which I'm sure will fall on deaf ears, is that, let's rely on the Sky TV, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, those kind of news providers that have a reputation of providing good quality news that is accurate. And please don't listen to social media, because unfortunately social media will be awash with rumours. People will become amateur detectives and start saying things that they have no way of proving. And I've noticed while I've been following and doing interviews on various channels regarding this subject, is all the presenters have caveated any information that comes forward, saying that they don't know at the moment and they're waiting to hear from the authorities. That's not the same when you look at social media, which is, I'm afraid, pretty disgraceful at the moment, the way it's sort of putting unwarranted rumours out there and having no thought to the feelings of the victims.
Let's just continue on that sort of theme, Dal, if you don't mind, because obviously it's something that you are very interested in. This isn't the first case of this kind where social media has started playing like an oversized role, an outsized role, and a role where disinformation and misinformation is there. Does that need to be looked at as well, do you think, going forward, the way that social media in these incidents is used?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with all due respect, you would get a sack if you didn't report responsibly. And that's not the same with the social media pundits. So you have professionals in news media who will be very, very cautious about the information they give. They'll want to give information quickly, accurately, in a reasonable and speedy way, but they will check. You will have a huge team behind you. You have a huge team behind you that checks news items and the information that comes out. Now, with social media, and we've seen this with missing people at Inquiry, and I think your colleague Shingi's been doing some work regarding the young man missing Jay in Tenerife. So I think what you end up with is, somebody like your colleagues will report responsibly. I'm afraid social media will just be fairly reckless. So I think we need to just take that on board.
Yeah, absolutely right. Dal, look, it's always good to get your thoughts, and we'll speak to you again, I'm sure, throughout the afternoon. Dal, thanks for that. So we'll stay with this story. The manhunt continues for Kyle Clifford, wanted in connection with 3 murders. Good afternoon. You're watching Sky News today and our continuing coverage of a manhunt for a 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. Police say that armed officers are carrying out a search for a suspect believed to have murdered 3 women in Hertfordshire. They are urgently looking for the 26-year-old after they revealed that victims aged 25, 28 and 61 all died in an incident last night in Ashling Close in Bushey. Hertfordshire police say they believed the attack was targeted and involved a crossbow and possibly other weapons. Well, a short while ago, Chief Superintendent John Simpson gave us this update.
Police were called to a property in Ashling Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
That's Chief Superintendent John Simpson with an update a short while ago. Now, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has also been commenting on this case, writing on social media that the loss of 3 women's lives in Bushey last night is truly shocking. My thoughts are with the family and friends of those who have been killed and with the community. She says, I am being kept fully updated and I urge people to support Hertfordshire Police with any information about this case. That's the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper commenting on this case in the last couple of hours. Let's bring in our correspondent Alice Porter, who is following this story for us and joins us now live. Alice, thank you very much for being with us. So police were called to Ashling Close just after 7 o'clock last night.
Yes, that's right. I mean, this is a manhunt that has now been going on for some considerable time. It was 7 p.m. last night. As you were saying, police were called to this property in Ashling Close in this area of Bushey, which is Bushey's a town outside Watford. It's a very leafy suburbia, very middle-class, quiet area. And as we've been hearing from residents, an area where things like this really don't happen. And police were called alongside the ambulance service and the air ambulance. So it really gives a sense there of the enormity of the response by the emergency teams. Now, they came to this property in Ashling Close, the aerials we're seeing at the moment. Now, 3 women were found at the scene. They were alive, but with serious injuries. And we understand that the women were 25 years old, 28 years old, and 61 years old. And it's understood that the 3 women were related to each other. We don't know whose property it was. Presumably it was a property which one, if not more, of the women lived at. Now, sadly, despite the best efforts of the paramedics last night at around 7 p.m. last night, the 3 women died at the scene, and there's manhunt really began at around that time for Kyle Clifford. Now that has been continuing through the night, through till this morning, and it was around 9 p.m. that we got 9 a.m. this morning that we got details of Kyle Clifford, his name, and a photo that is being widely circulated because the police want to speak to him in connection with the attack last night. We were, in fact, hearing from the police just in the last hour and a half or so, in which the police were making a direct plea to Kyle Clifford, urging him to make contact with the police, and they are also urging anyone with any information to come forward, but they do say to not approach Kyle Clifford because of the concerns that he may be armed, with a crossbow, and that he may have used another weapon and be in possession of another weapon. So that's the concern from the police. And so, unsurprisingly, the police are using armed police officers in their manhunt to try and find him. But the concern will be that we are now just after 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This was something that a manhunt that got underway last night at around 7 p.m. So this has been going on for some considerable time. Police will be searching the Enfield area, which is quite close to Bushey, slightly further east, and we understand that a school in the area, children have been kept inside as a precaution because of this manhunt that's going underway for Kyle Clifford, this 26-year-old from Enfield. Now, we understand from speaking to earlier commentators that that's probably just a precaution for the school, that it may be a situation where they just didn't let them out on break just to be on the safe side. But it does suggest that the police are continuing their searches in the Enfield area. But the worry is, particularly because of its proximity to London and very much a gateway to the north of the country, is that he may have already made his way out of the area. But we do know of teams that are working extensively in the area. They will be going door to door, going to try and obtain any information, any footage relating to last night and this attack that has sadly left 3 women dead. And that certainly will be reigniting concerns about violence against women and girls. This is 3 women who died in a home, and that will be certainly a concern. But I think it's also going to reignite concerns about crossbows as well. We've been hearing from some people today that there's concerns that there are 300,000 crossbows across the country. The previous government had considered tightening the laws around this because currently there's no requirement to have a licence in order to have a crossbow, although it is illegal to carry one in public unless you've got a reason. But there have been
Alice,
a number of concerns about crossbows over the last few years or so, and this will certainly reignite concerns about that debate.
Certainly will. Alice Porter there, our correspondent, thank you for that update. And some breaking news that's coming to us, and we can now report that the BBC are telling us that the 3 women killed in that incident in Ashton Close in Bushey are Carol Hunt and 2 of her daughters. Carol Hunt is the wife of the BBC radio commentator John Hunt. The BBC saying that the 3 women killed in this incident last night are Carol Hunt and 2 of her daughters. The daughters' ages, of course, 25 and 28. Carol Hunt, 61, the wife of the BBC 5 Live racing commentator John Hunt. That is according to the BBC, that those 3 women killed are Carol Hunt, the wife of the racing commentator John Hunt, and 2 of their daughters. Now, let's bring in our policing commentator, Graham Wetton, for more on this ongoing investigation. So there we have Graham. The BBC reporting the identity of these individuals. Of course, that makes no difference to how the investigation proceeds from this point.
No, it doesn't. The police would have been had that information from very early on from last night, so they've been aware of it for some time now, so it wouldn't affect or impact on how they're carrying out their search for the suspect. But hugely traumatic for anybody now that knows the family, knows the people involved. And again, the local community, once they release the details, you get to know more about the victims in cases like this, has a huge impact on everybody that reads about it and understands what's happened. But For policing perspective, professional work head on, the investigation has to continue. The search is the priority. Locating the suspect remains the priority, and the public's help and assistance is still being sought to locate him.
Yeah, and we'll come on to some of the investigation in a moment, in a moment, Graham. But I just want to sort of stay with the support that the police offering to the family of the victims here. Other than just having police officers around, what kind of support is offered at this stage of an investigation when everyone is obviously grieving, bereaved, and traumatised?
They deploy, you always hear it in these updates, so they deploy what they call them specially trained officers, family liaison officers, who are specially trained to deal with families of victims of crimes like this. So they will be there to support the family, update them and provide the link between the investigation and the family, because it's key that the family find out what is happening in relation to the investigation, what's happening in relation to the search for the suspect, and be updated with the investigation as it happens, rather than hearing it on the news or picking up a paper or whatever. So it's key the family are kept updated as much as possible as they can within the parameters of any operational requirements. But the family liaison officers provide that link between the police investigation. They are police officers. They are trained to deal with the family, keep them updated, explain the processes that the police are going through, maybe explain the evidential requirements, the scene investigation, what the police are doing. They will talk them through exactly what's happening, so they're kept as informed and updated as much as they possibly can.
Okay. And during that process, Graham, is there any coordination with the family as to when details are released to the public in this sort of way?
Yeah, they'll try and bear in mind that we live in such a technological age with social media and people talk, neighbours will talk. Sometimes information gets out before the police can actually manage or control it, but they will liaise with the family and update them and say, look, it's this information is likely to go public now. There's likely to be more information and interest about the victims and the circumstances. So they do try and manage that as much as they can. That's why the police will often hold on to the information of who the victims are until they've made sure that whoever needs to know within the immediate family are informed, rather than hear it on a radio broadcast or a TV bulletin. So the police try and manage that as much as possible. They will have had the information, the details of the victims very early on. They would have kept that and liaise with the family members to say that we're not going to release it to the press or the media yet or to the public, but it will come out at some point. And part of the family liaison officer's role is again mediating and managing the impact that once the names go out in the public, there's an increased interest. People are messaging about it, talking about it, etc. So that's an important and pivotal link as well for the family liaison officers, just to try and assist them, support them through that whole process once, as we've seen now, as those names are released to the wider public.
Yeah, and it may well, as you say, have some impact on the investigation. Graham, stay with us a moment. I do want to bring viewers a photograph that we have that shows Carol Hunt, the wife of John Hunt, believed to be the woman who was killed in this triple murder, alongside her two daughters. Carol Hunt, 61, her daughters, 25 and 28. She is the wife of the BBC racing commentator John Hunt, seen with her here in this photograph, just sort of making plain the family tragedy of this incident. Carol Hunt, 61, killed last night alongside two of her daughters, 25 and 28. The police manhunt continues for a person in connection with it. And Graham, look, you're still there. I believe Graham Wetmore, police commentator. These images now that give face to these people that have been killed and give the public a sense of perhaps who they are. That's also part of the police strategy, isn't it? Look, they've named the person they're looking for in connection with this. They've appealed directly to him, and now we see an image of one of the victims, which not only, I guess, puts pressure on the individual to bring themselves forward to face justice, but also anyone out there in the public that may have more information.
Yeah, it has a couple of impacts. I think it personalises the whole tragedy, the awful incident itself. So you see the image of mum, and then know that her two daughters are involved as well. So such an appalling and horrific incident for them, for the residents as well, the local neighbours, friends, family, etc. Suspect, if he's watching these bulletins, it also maybe sort of hits home even harder, if that's possible. But for the public, up until now, it was 3 victims, and 3 victims seems fairly anonymous, even when we had the ages released by the police in the press conference. And the police haven't released the details of the victims as such. It's come from other sources. But you hear the ages, and we start speculating. That sounds like it's a mother and 2 daughters. Now we get that confirmed. You see the family images, the pictures of mum, and know it's her 2 daughters involved as well. I think that hits home hard, and probably even more shocking for the members of the public. But as I just said, for the police officers, you have to keep your priorities. You have to maintain your focus on the investigation and the search for the suspect, and keep going on that. And there's a time for reflection and feeling sad and upset. But the priority for the officers on duty at the moment and about to come on duty to continue to search and locate the suspect is key, and is their main priority at the moment.
And that search is obviously continual until this individual is found. How do officers make sure that the knowledge that they have gained while they were looking is passed on and it's shared, and that nothing that may well seem insignificant at one point that later becomes significant doesn't fall through the cracks?
It's collated at the major investigation team, so there'll be a senior investigating officer, their deputy, an office manager. There's various roles within like the office environment that's managing all the information that's coming in, that will action and prioritise it. They will link it to other pieces of information, try and corroborate different information and evidence that's coming in, locating the suspects, looking at their associations, the addresses that they're known to frequent or use, any details of vehicles, any sort of like technological devices that they use, so computers, laptops, phones, etc. Any way they can locate them at all, or their friends and associates, just because the priority is to locate this man and arrest him.
Okay, Graham Wetton, our police commentator, thank you very much for now. Appreciate your expertise. I know we're going to speak to you again later on this afternoon, so Graham, thanks for now. Just to update viewers on the latest news that we have in the images that have been released in the last few minutes. Carol Hunt and 2 of her daughters, now known to be the victims of this incident, this triple murder in Bushey in Hertfordshire. Carol Hunt is the wife of the BBC racing commentator John Hunt. She was 61. Her 2 daughters, aged 25 and 28, also died in the incident in Ashton Close in Bushey in Hertfordshire yesterday evening. Police continue their manhunt for a 26-year-old Kyle Clifford in connection with this incident. Let's bring in Leroy Logan, a former superintendent for the Metropolitan Police. Leroy Logan, really good to get your expertise on this. Thanks very much for making the time to speak to us. Let's talk a little bit about the investigation as you've seen it at this stage. We've got the image of the person who wanted in connection released and his name, and that is quite an unusual step to take early on, I presume.
Yeah, for them to release someone's name and picture so quickly shows that they've got direct links, whether it's at the scene, some sort of forensics, some sort of possibly footage, eyewitnesses, or even some sort of communication from the deceased may have brought it clearly to the officer's attention that he needs to be caught and quick. And as a result of that, they made an all-points bulletin, so it will be ensuring that transport hubs, airports, even any sort of place where people are frequenting, shopping centres, having policed parts of Hertfordshire and Enfield during my career. I know it's a large area, so they're relying heavily on members of the public for their sightings as well, and of course CCTV and other forms of video footage. So hopefully it'll be caught ASAP.
Yeah, and there are reports as well through our Sky News website that armed police have searched a house in Enfield. Kyle Clifford believed to be from the Enfield area. So police will be looking at, residents and I guess addresses that are connected to him. How much help do police get from the fact that, everyone has a bit of a digital footprint now? If he drives a car, then it will be registered through the DVLA and will have been picked up on many traffic cameras, similarly with CCTV. How much does that help in the early stages of these kind of hunts, Leroy?
All of those forms of footage, CCTV, are detection tools. Greater London is one of the most surveillance CCTV capital of the world. We get captured so many times going from one end of London to another. So all those things are good investigative tools. They can assist in getting a trail of where the suspect has left that scene, going to any other sort of forms of contact with witnesses. Even if he's got a smartphone, those things can be tracked as well. So it is one of the most comprehensive areas you can get, just like a lot of towns and cities in this country, where you can get a lot of evidence from various forms of footage and even ring bells. People get that. Automatic number plate recognition. If he's linked with a car, again, that can be useful to track him. And we can't discount the possibility that people might be trying to assist him. So there'll be a lot of links with possible other people who might be associated with him and monitoring any sort of links he has with them, mobile phone connections or WhatsApp, whatever, any sort of contact. And we have to make sure that we don't go down false trails, because sometimes some people with best of intentions can give information that sends officers on the wrong trail. But the key part is that every line of inquiry will be followed. Hopefully dispel any conspiracy theories, whether it's on social media or otherwise, and ensuring that officers are being deployed efficiently and effectively to detect him and to prevent anyone assisting him from being apprehended.
Yeah, and I guess just with that as well, filter out those who don't have the best of intentions, who are putting out disinformation through social media in these kind of incidents. Leroy, look, I want you to stay with us for a moment, because in the last 10 minutes or so, we have had images come in of the victims of this incident. Carol Hunt, the wife of the BBC racing commentator John Hunt there. This is the latest picture that we have of the two of them, John and Carol. The picture there that we are seeing on screen, the two younger women, their daughters, who were killed in this triple murder incident in Bushey last night. And Leroy, look, we now have these images of the family of John Hunt and his wife Carol. The police have made the decision at this stage in the investigation to allow that to be released. What does that do with the investigation? What are the calculations, the strategy behind releasing these images at this stage, do you think?
Well, it's moved from just being number of people murdered to the human story, having their names released and now pictures of a couple. And of course, that's going to touch everyone's heart. It really brings it home. And hopefully it'll bring it home for the suspect to give himself up and say how he's devastated a family. He's even devastated his own family by what he's done. So hopefully that will bring it home. And also for anyone who might be thinking, well, I don't want to grass on him or anything like that. No, this brings it home that you have to tell the authorities anything you know. Don't hold back on information. It's critical we get him off the streets as soon as possible, because we know he's got various weapons. One is a crossbow, and suggestion that he had other weapons. So He's intentionally wanted to act in a way that has gone totally off the chart. It's unprecedented to see this sort of action. It's very rarely these things happen.
Yeah.
And obviously he's done it with some form of premeditation, because a crossbow is not something you just have to have easily accessible. It is something that you plan. You're not legally allowed to go around in a public street with a crossbow. So it shows premeditation.
Yeah.
And so that's why the officers are pulling out the stops to say, listen, this man, this is his face, this is his name, these are the victims, look at the human story. If you've got any information about him, tell the police, and if the suspect is listening or watching, give yourself up.
Yeah. And it was a very direct appeal by Superintendent John Simpson as well to this individual, calling him by name and asking for him to come forward. On the crossbow thing as well, Leroy, I do want to get your thoughts on that as well. I mean, the latest data that I have here that says that between 2011 and 2021, fewer than 10 homicides with crossbow. But, while they're rare, they are a serious weapon, and previous government and perhaps this government are going to would be looking at changing some of the laws around them. What's your sense, what's your experience of this as a weapon being used by people, and what do you think needs to be done about them?
Well, I think you've got to prevent weapons of this nature getting in the hands of definitely people who are have mental health issues, drugs. We have to be, it's a form of firearm. And, it might not be using the principles of a revolver, but it can kill. And these things have to be restricted. I know there's certain sporting activities, etc., why you would have it. But again, you shouldn't be having it in your possession anywhere in a public vicinity. But, there's certain clubs where they're used as a sport, but you cannot allow these things. So I think there should be some form of licensing or something to restrict people having these things. But unfortunately, through internet, you can get these things. They're not being checked, and they can be assembled. So it's something that has to be really reviewed and looked at very closely. And I think there's this wider argument about how people are taking these severe actions, and violence ends up as people getting injured or killed, and so there's a massive issue around how young people and people per se, not just young people, how they manage conflict without resorting to violence. I mean, those are sort of things that is learnt, and you have to ensure that if people are in any way indicating that they're that way inclined, they need to be identified and supported and helped before it gets into a form of behaviour that has horrendous implications. And that's one of the things that I tried to do with a charity I started 23 years ago in 2001 called Voyage Youth, where we help people to know their rights and responsibilities. And education is the key. And it's not just about weapons, but it's how you interact with other people without resorting to violence, especially when it comes to women and girls, and respecting them and having a more safeguarding approach. So these sort of things we really need to hopefully the new government will really start focusing on, because education is so important, prevent people going down this road of violence and, impacting on people's lives in a horrendous way.
Absolutely right. OK, Leroy Logan, I really do appreciate your expertise and knowledge. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, Leroy. I'm sure we'll speak again, but thanks very much for now. OK, you are watching Sky News Today, and that is John Hunt and wife Carol Hunt. Carol Hunt killed yesterday evening in Bushey along with her 2 daughters. Police are still involved in a manhunt for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. John Hunt was a BBC Racing and Sky Sports racing commentator. His wife Carol killed, as well as their 2 daughters, in an incident last night in Bushey in Hertfordshire. We're going to have more on our continuing coverage of that ongoing police manhunt after this short break. Welcome back. Now, the wife and two daughters of a BBC racing commentator have been killed in what's suspected to be a crossbow attack at their home. Carol Hunt, who was 61, was married to the BBC 5 Live commentator John Hunt. Two of their daughters died last night in Ashling Close in Hertfordshire. Let's bring in our correspondent, Ashna Hurnag, who was there at the scene for us. Ashna.
More about those who were the victims of this senseless attack. Last night, police were called here to this cul-de-sac just after 7 o'clock in the evening. People, we have been told, had been watching the football when some heard screams, as we now know what unfolded inside that property beyond this cordon. We know that 3 women, aged 25, 28 and a 61-year-old woman, they were believed to have been attacked, suffered serious injuries that ultimately proved to be fatal. Officers and first responders here did their best to try and save their lives. But we know now that those people were the wife and 2 daughters of the BBC racing commentator John Hunt, as the broadcaster is now reporting. Pressure is mounting, no doubt, on police here as they desperately try and search for their key suspect, a man who is called Kyle Clifford. He is 26 years old, and crucially, right now, as we enter the 18th hour of this manhunt, he has yet to be found. This cul-de-sac is his last known location. I spoke to some of the people that live on this street today about how they're feeling about this happening on their doorstep. Here's what they had to say.
Everybody just turned up at 7 o'clock, and it was like an explosion in the street of police cars and ambulances, and it was, I would say in just this little bit here was at least 10 police cars, and they were all down here. And we didn't know what was going on, me or the neighbour, we didn't have a clue. And they just suddenly, you noticed there was police outside in black uniform with sort of semi-automatic guns walking around. So I initially thought it might be terrorists or something, but that's all I can say. And then they were here all last night. Obviously it's been blocked off and everything's been going on, but it's been a bit of a shock because it's a really residential area. And there isn't, nothing much ever goes on round here at all, apart from people going back and forwards to work, and back and forwards to where they go.
Just hearing about this individual, when you saw his face pop up, that they're trying to search for this guy.
I don't know who he is, never seen him. Well, I never saw anybody round here carrying a crossbow at all, never at all. I never see it. Well, it was a surprise. It's the volume of people all of a sudden turning up, all the police, all the ambulance, everything going on all of a sudden. It just came all of a sudden. It was like an amazing thing, and there it was. And I knew it must be very serious because there was so many police here, and there was so many police cars and everything going on, people going up and down the street. The place was fenced off straight away. So that's all I can tell you, really.
Well, look, it's horrific. I came yesterday in the evening after my wife called me several times. She was like panicking what's happening. There was a dozen police cars down the road, so she's asking what's going on. I obviously came a bit later, then I got calls from other people saying that something tragic had happened. I only learned this morning that there was actually 3 women who had been brutally killed, which is horrific. I've lived here for many years. I've been in the area since '99. So it's a nice, quiet area, very unassuming, professionals, people who have retired. So it is a nice, quiet suburban area. So yeah, a situation like this undoubtedly will be troubling for a lot of people.
People in this area have been truly horrified by what's unfolded here in the last few hours. Police often talk about the most crucial part of any investigation and any suspected murder investigation, that the crucial point is 24 hours and the movements of their suspect will be of utmost importance. We spoke to Chief Superintendent John Simpson, who spoke to the media in a press conference within the last couple of hours. He has said that, yes, Clifford is likely to be in possession of a crossbow, but he also may have other weapons too. The Home Secretary, we know she is being kept fully informed by the incident and ongoing investigation. Yvette Cooper saying that she has found this incident truly shocking. Chief Superintendent John Simpson also describing this as a targeted incident, but this is a manhunt now that stretches far beyond these streets, well into North London, well into other parts of Hertfordshire, all in a desperate attempt to try and find this man. And ultimately, thoughts now very much with the people who we know are the victims in this, the wife and the 2 daughters of the BBC commentator.
OK, Ashna Huranag there for us. Ian Bushey, thank you for now. Now, as Ashna was mentioning, we did hear earlier from Hertfordshire Police giving us an update on the ongoing manhunt for Kyle Clifford. Let's take a listen to what Chief Superintendent John Simpson had to say.
Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
Well, that was Chief Superintendent John Simpson from Hertfordshire Police with an update a couple of hours ago. Let's bring back in the police commentator Graham Wetton, who is still with us. Graham, it's great to have your expertise this afternoon as the manhunt continues for Kyle Clifford. We've heard that a house has been searched in Enfield. I guess that'll be the beginning of maybe a number of properties being searched by police as they continue to hunt for this individual.
Yeah, possibly. That's obviously an address that's linked to the suspect. So liaising with the Met Police, search was carried out this morning of that address. Clearly, he's not been found. But again, there might be evidence or information that's now been followed up on as to where he may be gone to. So a key part of the investigation, search an address that's linked to the suspect, and from that, it may uncover other addresses or other venues or even associates, vehicles, etc., that can form part of the investigation. But clearly a fast-moving, fast-paced investigation and search for this suspect.
Yeah, but I don't know if you heard Leroy Logan speaking to me just a short while ago, but he made the point that, it can't be ruled out at this stage that someone is harbouring, helping this individual. How do police kind of get over that hurdle of the fact that this person might be getting help from someone else?
Brutally honest, sometimes you can't get over the fact that sometimes, allegiances, etc., some people feel are stronger than the information. That's why sometimes you see the senior investigating officer and the press conference that we heard earlier releases the information. Then we get the names of the victims released, and you start to form a picture of the people that have actually been impacted and affected and murdered from this incident. That sometimes generates a response from people who may have assisted an individual up until this point, because up until then, it's just been 3 victims and you're getting one side of the story from the suspect who you may be assisting. So sometimes as more information comes out, people's allegiances will change, and you may well get some information then sent into the police. But on occasions, sometimes there's just a blind allegiance. They just literally help the suspect because of their own relationship with that suspect. So sometimes it's exceptionally difficult to get over that somebody somewhere may be assisting or harbouring this suspect.
The hunt is going on, of course, Graham. Do you think by this stage of the search for Clifford, the police have been able to rule out him having left the country?
Well, possibly. Possibly there will be a pulse alert would have gone out as soon as they had his identity. So a message would have gone out to all the ports to be on the lookout for him. So the normal ways to exit the country, the legal ways to exit the country, will have been notified that he's a suspect for this. That would have gone out fairly early on in the investigation, so overnight. So you can't ever rule it out. You have to keep an open mind in all of these things. And Bushey, Watford, etc., is not that far from the coast. And, a couple of hours drive at that time of night would put you down on the coast at one of the coastal ports. So depending when that information was released, but they will be checking back to see who's left the country between, say, 7, 8 p.m. from the time the incident occurred, about an hour or so after, as to whether he's actually left the country yet. But from the way the search and the investigation is going, that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be still a very active search for him. So they clearly believe he's still in the country somewhere, and probably at an address or in an area that he knows quite well. That tends to happen with suspects. They'll go towards areas that they know and are familiar with, which is why the background checks and the information that they gather is so key in these investigations. It's cross-checking and looking at what information you have, what you know about the suspect, what links they have, what areas they go to and they know very well, where they grew up, where they went to school, where they work, places they've worked at. That all becomes, or can become, quite key information in searching for somebody.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my point, Graham, as well. I guess that, you know, if he had have left before the name and the warning went out to the ports, there would be a flag, wouldn't there? You know, we'd have seen him, his passport would have had to be scanned, because it's, I presume it's unlikely, we don't know enough about this individual, unlikely that you would have any kind of fake documentation that would allow him to get out of the country. So when you start then looking in his locality, you know, a house has been searched, you start then going to friends' houses, family members' houses, his places of work?
Yeah, possibly. That they're all avenues for the investigation and the search to continue. So you'll look at what information you have about them, the close friendships or relationships they've had, without knowing his full background, whether he's known to police, is a common term used, but whether he's known to police, has he come to notice for anything before, what addresses were used then, and literally speaking to people that know, work with him, socialise with him, to see whether there's any addresses or venues they think he may have gone to. And then they have to be either searched or checked.
Give us an insight into sort of the mindset of the officers that are on this now, if you can, Graham. You know, what's the sort of the feeling? They know that, you know, that everyone in the media is talking about it. They guess they know the pressure from their bosses to try and do well. What sort of sense does an officer have at this point in a manhunt like this?
Well, the bosses will want them to do well, but actually, it's just your professionalism will drive you to locate the suspect and bring justice to the victim's family. So it literally is. It's just a desire to remove him from society, as in remove the risk to anybody else, get justice for the victim's families, locate him, arrest him, and then let the justice system take its natural course. Look at the evidence, look at the information that's been gathered, decide if there are any charges to be put, and then let justice take its course. It's your professionalism and your drive to get the job done will be keeping them going. They'll have worked significant hours. I'll be surprised if many of them have gone home since last night. They may have gone home, quick shower, change, come back, maybe grab something to eat. But I would imagine most of that major investigation team are still running, maybe 20 hours on, from when they first went into work late last night. We're now talking nearly 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Some of them probably got called into the police station, maybe in the early hours, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. They're probably still sitting at work now, working through the stuff. They may well go for a couple of hours break, but then they want to go back because your drive to get this done keeps you going. You're working on adrenaline to a certain degree, but just wanting to get this resolved and bring some justice or some comfort to the victim's family and resolve this as much as you possibly can within policing.
Absolutely right. And look, we're sort of, 18 hours into this at the moment, Graham. Is there a change after a day when this individual hasn't been found, 2 days when this hasn't been found? Does the tone of the investigation, the pace of the investigation change in any way, do you think? The pace changes slightly just because of the length of time, the duration that you're looking at. So you can't maintain such an intense pace for that period of time. But if you get a priority action come in, and action that he's dealing with as soon as possible or straight away, you'll get the officers react to that. So police officers tend to react to and are able to prioritise very quickly and be very decisive. So if something comes in that looks like or everything supports the fact that this is a key piece of information, we need to react on this now, then literally the adrenaline kicks in again and you just go again. You just keep on going until you locate them. The actual focus of the investigation may well change as the time goes on, as the duration changes, it becomes longer and longer. So you may have to broaden your search or look at other avenues to gather information. But the fact they put a public appeal out so quickly, so swiftly, tends to suggest they need the public's assistance and support in locating this individual. Maybe people that know
or suspect where he is or know the associates and friends that he has. It's all that key information, and it comes down to prioritising or filtering that information through and identifying what is really key.
Absolutely. All right, Graham Wetton, police commentator, really do appreciate your expertise, as I said. Graham, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. We'll, of course, be speaking again, I'm sure, as the investigation continues. Now, just to bring you an update to this incident, it's being reported by the BBC that a note has been sent to BBC staff that it is utterly devastating, this news, that the wife and 2 daughters of the commentator John Hunt are the victims in this incident in Bushey. That is a note that's been sent to BBC staff as a result of this ongoing investigation. Carol Hunt, who was 61, and 2 of their daughters, aged 25, 28, killed in that incident in Bushey yesterday evening. Let's bring in our correspondent Alice Porter, who was following this story for us and joins us now. And look, Alice, we've seen now the image of Carol Hunt, the wife of John Hunt, who was killed in this incident, which humanises a tragedy that we're beginning to understand a little bit more about.
Yes, that's right. I think when we got the ages of the 3 victims, we knew early this morning that it was 3 women involved. But once we got the ages through of 25, 28 and 61, sadly, you couldn't help feel that this was a mother and her 2 daughters. And unfortunately, that is exactly what we have heard in the last half hour or so. And this is Carol Hunt, is the woman in question, the 61-year-old woman, and she was married to John Hunt, who is in fact a racing commentator with Sky Sports. And it's understood that it's 2 of their daughters, the 25-year-old and 28-year-old, who also died in this dreadful attack. So we're getting more information, and this will certainly continue to develop throughout the day. We'll start to glean more information on the family involved. But as you say, it really humanises it, and seeing the photo there of the couple, your hearts really go out to this family, to Carol Hunt there having passed away, and her 2 daughters, the daughters of Carol and John Hunt there. John Hunt, a racing commentator, including there with Sky Sports. So tragic news, but we're also getting a little bit more information, not just about the victims involved, but also about Kyle Clifford, a suspect in the police investigations. Sky News understands that he's previously worked as a security guard, and they will certainly be using that information, the police, to try and get more information about him, and as they try and hunt him down. This is a manhunt that's been going on now for an incredible 19 hours, coming up for that, because it was 7 p.m. last night that police were called to this property in Ashling Close, where 3 women who were still alive but with serious injuries. Paramedics came to the scene, air ambulance, but sadly those 3 women died at the scene. Really, really tragic. And this manhunt has been going on since 7 p.m. last night. We understand that police have searched a property in Enfield, hoping for any more information about 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. We've heard from police who were urging him to make contact with the police. They made a personal appeal to Kyle Clifford, urging him to make contact with the police. But there's no news yet, and the police investigations very much continue.
Indeed, right, Alice Porter there, thank you for that. Now let's speak now to a former senior detective at the Met, Simon Harding, who's joining us now live. Simon Harding, thanks very much for making the time to speak to us this afternoon. What are your initial thoughts, knowing what you know about the investigation so far?
Well, obviously, the priority around this is to find him as quickly as possible. One, before, potentially he could harm anybody else or indeed himself. And obviously, the initial thoughts are to help that family, the poor family that are now going through this, and all their friends and colleagues and everybody that's going to be affected. But of course, he does have a number of hours on the police in terms of him making away from the scene and wherever he might be now. But their priority will be like they have done already, as you said, they've searched a property already. They'll be looking at other people associated to him, making sure he hasn't got out of the country legally, obviously. And then, really just trying to get the evidence together to make sure that they have what they have to prove that he did it. But the priority sitting above all this is to find him as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I guess, the reason why his name and image was released at 8:30 this morning. What did you make of that decision to release the name so early in the investigation, Simon?
Well, as an SIO, you do decide, you make those sort of decisions to involve the press early and then go one stage further to make direct appeals to the public and sometimes, in this case as well, the direct appeal to the suspect themselves. So, it's a decision that's been made and it looks like it's the correct decision because, they haven't got him and they need as much help as possible to do that. And that's why, you are saying, please don't approach him, but we need sightings, we need information. And it won't just be sightings, it will also be, what do people know about him? What does he do during the day? Where does he go? What does he like to do? All those sort of things to build up a picture of him to understand where he might be heading, where he might be hiding. And of course, at the moment, they're desperate for information to find him. And we hope that happens soon.
Yeah, and just for viewers, if they don't know, SIO, Senior Investigating Officer, I believe. That's right, isn't it, Simon?
That's right, yeah.
So, look, this individual was a former security guard, so they're going to start looking at his work history, I guess, and places of work. When do the investigating officers start pulling people in from his life to try and speak to them to find out stuff about him?
Well, they'll be doing that almost immediately. I mean, they'll be speaking to the people closest to him. Even possibly using people very close to him to try and draw him back in. But, there's lots of things that people have, that they have mobile phones, which can help try to identify where people might have gone, calls that they might have made, his financial transactions that might have been made during the period of time from when this happened to now. All those things can give you an idea of the direction that they might be going in. But, of course, in certain circumstances, then they turn those things off and they don't use their finances. So, there will be pressure on the SIO, the Senior Investigating Officer, and the police, but this pressure is something which they understand, and you kind of soak up a little bit because you're just so focused on trying to find this person. And as Graham said earlier, you're trying to get them off the streets as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's the sort of the final point as well, isn't it? That the police are desperate to try and bring in this individual because of the use of a weapon thought to be a crossbow and potentially other weapons as well that were used in the incident. All right, Simon Harding, thanks very much for your expertise. Do appreciate that, Simon Harding, former detective for the Metropolitan Police. Well, you're watching Sky News today and our continuing coverage of the manhunt that is underway for an individual involved in the murder of 3 people in Bushey. Now, we have the names of the individuals who have been killed. Louise, Hannah, the daughters, and Carol is the wife. We'll have more in the next hour. It is 3 o'clock. You're watching Sky News today, and our breaking news this hour. 3 women killed in a crossbow attack have been named as Carol Hunt, the wife of the racing commentator John Hunt, and their daughters Louise and Hannah. A manhunt is underway to find 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, believed to be armed and in Hertfordshire or in North London.
The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident.
The 3 women died at a house in Hertfordshire on Tuesday night. The search for Clifford continues. Police have warned the public not to approach him. Also this hour, Sir Keir Starmer in Washington for the NATO summit on his first foreign trip since becoming Prime Minister. 2 children who attended primary school that was dealing with an outbreak of infection have died. The Hollywood star Alec Baldwin is back in court as he prepares to go on trial over the death of a cinematographer on the set of the movie Rust. And a date with destiny in Dortmund, England, getting ready for tonight's semi-final against the Netherlands in the Euros. Well, good afternoon. Our main story, police say that armed officers are carrying out a major manhunt in the search for a suspect believed to have murdered 3 women in Hertfordshire. The 3 women killed are 61-year-old Carol Hunt, the wife of the Sky Sports racing presenter, and BBC racing commentator John Hunt, and their 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and 28-year-old Hannah. Police and paramedics say that they tried to save the women who were found just after 7 p.m, but they were pronounced dead at the scene. Well, Hertfordshire police say they are urgently looking for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, who may be armed with a crossbow as well as other weapons. The police have warned the public not to approach him. Earlier, Chief Superintendent John Simpson gave us this update.
Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
Well, that was Chief Superintendent John Simpson from Hertfordshire Police with an update earlier. Let's bring in our correspondent Ashna Hernag, who is covering this for us, joins us now from Ashton Close in Bushey. Ashna, Thanks very much for being with us. We have now had some clarification as to the victims in this horrific incident.
The victims of this senseless attack, Kamali, we can now tell our viewers, were members of the Hunt family. Their names are Louise, Hannah and Carol Hunt. Louise, 25 years old, Hannah, 28, and Carol Hunt, aged 61 years old. All of them are the wife and two daughters of the BBC and Sky Sports racing commentator John Hunt. Their bodies were found inside a house inside this cul-de-sac behind me at 7 o'clock last night in the evening, after police officers and ambulance crews were called here to respond to this incident. Upon arrival, they found those three women with serious injuries that ultimately proved to be fatal. One of those neighbours who happened to be at home at the time was Safia Karim, who I can now bring in now. Safia, hearing this news and last night how everything unfolded, what was that like to see out of your front window?
Oh, we were all very anxious. We were on edge all night, unable to sleep until the very early hours of the morning, because we're just seeing a flood of blue lights, helicopters, sirens everywhere. We were all very scared.
And to have this understanding now of a guy is on the run, there's a manhunt looking for him, and he could be carrying a number of weapons, but he is in possession of a crossbow. How does that make you feel?
It makes me fear for the safety of this country. It puts into place a serious question of, are women safe? Are any of us safe? Because this is an area so quiet, so safe. It's a cul-de-sac. No one needs to come here unless they have business to do so. And to know that something as heinous as this could happen only a doorstep away raises huge concern for the whole country, let alone us locals.
And it puts that question, as you say, back into people's minds, the safety of women and girls. We're talking about two women in their 20s and their mother, a 61-year-old lady, completely senseless. And as a young woman, you're saying to me you've grown up in sort of northwest London and living here now for about a year. Your reflections on that, really?
I just think if someone is able to freely walk around with a weapon such as a crossbow or even knives, which are so easily accessible, it really begs the question, where is safety for the public? How can any of us feel safe going out in broad daylight? It was still light outside. So if we're not able to walk freely in our own communities and neighbourhoods, then why would we feel safe going out even at night as a woman?
Safia, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you speaking to us, considering that it is a pretty distressing time for people here, so I'm really grateful. Thank you. As Safia mentions there is a real palpable shock for people here. This is a quiet area. Things like this, we were just chatting earlier, do not happen in this area. And to add to that and compounding that fear of what happened to those women is the idea that this man is still on the run and police are yet to find him.
Ashna, for now, thank you. And Safia, thanks for that too. Let's bring in the former senior detective at the Met, Simon Harding, for more on this. Simon, thanks for being with us. Let's just pick up on that last point that we heard from the young lady that Ashna was talking to, that sense of fear and of lack of safety for women in and around the area where this occurred last night. What can the police do at this point in the investigation to try and ensure that women feel safe?
I mean, obviously, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, there'll be the reassurance patrols that will be in the local area. But, I think, and she put it so well, didn't she? And that really brings it to a reality of, obviously, you have a family behind this which are going to be in deep shock, and a community as well. And it does raise more questions, doesn't it, about weapons? They've mentioned, obviously, the crossbow. There is legislation around that, but why would you want to own one in the first place, unless it was for sporting purposes? And then there's potential for more weapons they've talked about as well. And it just seems as though, I've dealt with a lot of cases as a senior officer where, women are the target and they have been targeted. And it's very, very distressing for women to walk about thinking that their safety is being affected in this way. And I think, once again, we have another very, very serious, very, very big case, which are we going to see any reaction to it from the people that can help members of the public, help the communities, and help the police as well in targeting people and stopping certain types of weapons being so readily available to people who want them for a sort of nefarious purpose. So there's lots that's going to come out of this.
Yeah, indeed. And we've already heard from the Home Secretary talking about her shock at the fact that these 3 women have been killed in a home in Bushey. Now, Simon, talk to us about the investigation as we understand it at this stage. The name and face of this individual wanted in connection was released really early, 8:30 this morning after the incident last night at around 7 p.m. Still not found. Where are the police at this point, sort of, 19, 20 hours on in their investigation?
Yeah, so there'll be 2 kind of sides to it. One, the priority, which is trying to find him, and that sort of manhunt will be involving many officers around, not just in Hertfordshire and the Met Police. It will be further out than that, using all the agencies around your borders and everybody else that could help. The NCA, the National Crime Agency, might become involved with their expertise. There'll be lots of people that the police will be able to call on to help. And then you have the other side of the investigation, which is the crime scene itself, which is making sure that that is done to the standard which we expect in British policing. It's one of the highest standards in the world around homicide investigations, and they'll be wanting to make sure that they prove that case. And obviously they got the name very quickly. So, we don't know why that name came about very quickly. It could be CCTV, it could be anything. So we just, but the senior investigating officer and the police, more senior officers than that, will be very conscious that putting that name out is very impactful and very important. And it means that they are satisfied, and you would have to be satisfied to make such an appeal about somebody that you want with a photograph and their details.
Indeed. All right, Simon Harding, former detective at the Met, thanks very much for your expertise this afternoon. Do appreciate it, Simon. Good to talk to you. Now, messages of condolence have been posted onto social media by people from across the world of race broadcasting. Sky Sports Racing put this statement out saying everyone at Sky Sports Racing is deeply saddened by the tragic deaths in Hertfordshire, and our thoughts are with our colleague John Hunt, his family and friends at this awful time. The ITV racing commentator Matt Chapman wrote in an entry on X that there were no words needed for what has happened to John Hunt and family today. Impossible to comprehend the pain. Just know we are all here for you, John. We love you, pal, it says. Racing loves you. And the Amateur Racing Association for Great Britain posted on Facebook the most shocking and horrifying news. All our thoughts and prayers are with John and his family, to whom we send our love and deepest condolence. May God give them the strength to cope with this unimaginable tragedy. Well, residents in Ashling Close have told us that it's a quiet neighbourhood.
Everybody just turned up at 7 o'clock, and it was like an explosion in the street of police cars and ambulances, and it was, I would say in just this little bit here was at least 10 police cars, and they were all down here. And we didn't know what was going on, me or the neighbour, we didn't have a clue. And they just suddenly noticed there was police outside in black uniform with sort of semi-automatic guns walking around. So I initially thought it might be terrorists or something, but that's all I can say. And then they were here all last night. Obviously it's been blocked off and everything's been going on, but it's been a bit of a shock because it's a really residential area and there isn't nothing much ever goes on round here at all, apart from people going back and forwards to work, and back and forwards to where they go.
Just hearing about this individual, when you saw his face pop up, that they're trying to search for this guy.
I don't know who he is, never seen him. Well, I never saw anybody round here carrying a crossbow at all, never at all. I never see it. Well, it was a surprise. It's the volume of people all of a sudden turning up, all the police, all the, ambulance, everything going on, all of a sudden. It just came all of a sudden. It was like an amazing thing, and there it was. And I knew it must be very serious because there were so many police here and there were so many police cars and everything going on, people going up and down the street, the place was fenced off straight away. So that's all I can tell you, really.
Well, look, it's horrific. I came yesterday in the evening after my wife called me several times. She was like panicking what's happening. There was a dozen police cars down the road, so she's asking what's going on. I obviously came a bit later, then I got calls from other people saying that something tragic had happened. I only learned this morning that there was actually 3 women who had been brutally killed, which is horrific. I've lived here for many years. I've been in the area since '99. So it's a nice, quiet area, very unassuming, professionals, people who have retired. So it is a nice, quiet suburban area. So yeah, a situation like this undoubtedly will be troubling for a lot of people.
Now, in the last hour, I spoke to Dal Babu, a former chief superintendent with the Met, and asked him what his assessment had been of the investigation so far.
Well, I think it's fast moving, but I think yet again we see horrific violence against women, and I think it's a stain on our country, the level of violence against women and girls. And we know that 3 women have lost their lives, but sadly, we really need to challenge this in an effective way. And I hope the new administration that's come in will have a robust policy to deal with the violence against women. Almost 3 women are murdered every week by people they know, partners, ex-partners. And I'm not speculating on who the suspect is, but this is pretty horrific. The entire women in a family could potentially have been all wiped out. Very, very sad.
And Dal, from your experience, how do you sort of toughen the sense against, violence against women? What steps need to be taken? What would you want to hear from the new government, from the Home Secretary, to try and make sure that these kind of incidents don't occur?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge the scale of the problem. It's shocking. And it's very, very rare to deal with a situation like this without sort of being emotional and being upset about the level of violence and how it continues. So I think what we need to do is have a real debate around the extent of the problem and make sure that we put resources in place, not at the end where we're doing manhunts for suspects who have been accused of 3 murders in this case, but we're actually looking at work we do with children at school age and make sure that young boys are taught at a very, very young age the importance of respect and the importance of working collaboratively with young women. And I think we need to make sure that domestic violence lessons are taught in schools so people understand what an acceptable relationship is and how it's never acceptable to have an abusive relationship, whether it's coercive control or physical violence, as there appears to have been in this case. So I think we really need to take that on board. I think this investigation is, I've worked in Enfield. Enfield is where the suspect is apparently lived or used to live. We know that Bushey is very close by. It's about 12 miles away from Enfield. And Enfield's a very, very leafy borough compared to a lot of London boroughs. So the police will be looking at phone intelligence. They'll be looking at CCTV, doorbell camera footage, footage from vehicles, and they'll want to try and balance sharing information with the public and the press and ensuring that the press are able to provide information to them and the public provide information. I think just listening to your item just beforehand and the police officer asking the suspect to call 999 to arrange for him to be handed in safely. I think that's very, very important. Suspects will be watching news items. So it's important that the suspect understands that, he either presents himself to an armed officer or he dials 999 and is detained safely so this matter can be resolved. But at the moment, there'll be a lot of people who are very, very anxious in and around the Enfield area and indeed the Bushey area where the murder happens.
And that's part of the police strategy, isn't it, Dal, to put this man's face and name out there so quickly. It happened at 8:30 this morning that the police released his name and his image.
And that's unusual by itself because what normally happens when a suspect is is wanted by police, you don't put that images out to the press. But the police will have been working with responsible press organisations like Sky, BBC, ITV, who will be very, very responsible about the reporting. They'll understand the restrictions and they'll not sensationalise it. The same can't be said of social media. And I think what you end up with is people who really don't know what they're doing, want a moment of glory, will be putting information on social media which may or may not be true, which may cause alarm. Often these people have no thoughts about the distress that the families of these 3 murder victims will be going through. So it's a plea which I'm sure will fall on deaf ears, is that, let's rely on the Sky TV, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, those kind of news providers that have a reputation of providing good quality news that is accurate. And please don't listen to social media, because unfortunately social media will be awash with rumours. People will become amateur detectives and start saying things that they have no way of proving. And I've noticed while I've been following and doing interviews on various channels regarding this subject, is all the presenters have caveated any information that comes forward saying that they don't know at the moment and they're waiting to hear from the authorities. That's not the same when you look at social media, which is, I'm afraid, pretty disgraceful at the moment, the way it's sort of putting unwarranted rumours out there and having no thought to the feelings of the victims.
Let's just continue on that sort of theme, Dal, if you don't mind, because obviously it's something that you are very interested in. This isn't the first case of this kind where social media has started playing like an oversized role, an outsized role, and a role where disinformation and misinformation is there. Does that need to be looked at as well, do you think, going forward, the way that social media in these incidents is used?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with all due respect, you would get a sack if you didn't report responsibly. And that's not the same with the social media pundits. So you have professionals in news media who will be very, very cautious about the information they give. They'll want to give information quickly, accurately, in a reasonable and speedy way, but they will check. You will have a huge team behind you. You have a huge team behind you that checks news items and the information that comes out. Now, with social media, and we've seen this with missing people at inquiry, and I think your colleague Shingi's been doing some work regarding the young man missing Jay in Tenerife. So I think what you end up with is, somebody like your colleagues will report responsibly. I'm afraid social media will just be fairly reckless. So I think we need to just take that on board.
Well, that was Dalbert speaking to me earlier. Well, do make sure you watch the UK Tonight at 8 for a special programme from Hertfordshire. The manhunt continues to try and track down Kyle Clifford. You're watching Sky News Today. Still to come. Just days after becoming Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer takes to the world stage at the 75th NATO Summit. We will be live in Washington. And the countdown to tonight's England game is well underway. The Three Lions getting ready to face the Netherlands in the semi-finals of the Euros. Welcome back. You're watching Sky News Today. A reminder of our main story. 3 women killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire. The wife of the racing commentator John Hunt and 2 of their daughters, Hannah and Louise. They were murdered at a house in Bushey. Officers and emergency crews, including the air ambulance, were sent but were unable to save the women who died at the scene. Well, police have launched a manhunt for Kyle Clifford, who is 26, with searches taking place close to the scene and in Enfield. We'll have more on this ongoing story later, but for now, let's turn to some of today's other news. And the Prime Minister is in the United States on his first foreign trip since taking over at number 10. Keir Starmer is in Washington, where world leaders are gathering to mark the 75th anniversary of NATO, which comes against a backdrop of Russian airstrikes on Ukraine. Earlier, the PM met the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz as pressure grows over when Starmer will commit to increasing UK defence spending. Last night, President Biden said America and allies are boosting air defence support for Ukraine, and they have pledged to provide 5 new air defence systems. Well, let's bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone, for on this. Good to see you, Mark. Now, this is Sir Keir Starmer's first introduction to the world stage, and it's a big summit for him to be at.
Yeah, I mean, as we were saying yesterday, sometimes in politics, timing is luck, and it's certainly on his side today, because it's very, very unusual for a new British Prime Minister to be at the centre of the world stage so soon in his premiership. But he is. He arrived very late last night, and today he will be arriving here at this summit, this